Ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy that justice can have. James Baldwin is our ancestor of the week.
Over the course of the 1960s, the FBI amassed almost 2,000 documents in an investigation into one of America's most celebrated minds. The subject of this inquiry was a writer named James Baldwin. At the time, the FBI investigated many artists and thinkers, but most of their files were a fraction of the size of Baldwin's. During the years when the FBI hounded him, he became one of the best-selling Black authors in the world. So what made James Baldwin loom so large in the imaginations of both the public and the authorities? Born in Harlem in 1924, he was the oldest of 9 children. After high school, he began writing novels and essays while taking a series of odd jobs. So in 1948, at the age of 24, he moved to Paris on a writing fellowship. From France, he published his first novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, in 1953. Baldwin gathered his thoughts on race, class, culture, and exile in his 1955 extended essay, Notes of a Native Son. Meanwhile, the civil rights movement was gaining momentum in America. Black Americans were making incremental gains at registering to vote and voting, but were still denied basic dignities in schools, on buses, in the workforce, and in the armed services. Though he lived primarily in France for the rest of his life, Baldwin was deeply invested in the movement and keenly aware of his country's unfulfilled promise. He had seen family, friends, and neighbors spiral into addiction, incarceration, and suicide. He believed their fates originated from the constraints of a segregated society. In 1963, he published The Fire Next Time, an arresting portrait of racial strife in which he held white America accountable. But he also went further, arguing that racism hurt white people too. In his view, everyone was inextricably enmeshed in the same social fabric. He had long believed that people are trapped in history, and history is trapped in them. Baldwin's role in the civil rights movement went beyond observing and reporting. He also traveled through the American South, attending rallies, giving lectures of his own. He debated both white politicians and Black activists, including Malcolm X, and served as a liaison between Black activists and intellectuals and white establishment leaders like Robert Kennedy. Because of Baldwin's unique ability to articulate the causes of social turbulence in a way that white audiences were willing to hear, Kennedy and others tended to see him as an ambassador for Black Americans, a label Baldwin rejected. And at the same time, his faculty with words led the FBI to view him as a threat. Throughout his life, Baldwin considered it his role to bear witness. Unlike many of his peers, he lived to see some of the victories of the civil rights movement, but the continuing racial inequalities in the United States weighed heavily on him. Though he may have felt trapped in his moment in history, his words have made generations of people feel known, while guiding them toward a more nuanced understanding of society's most complex issues. Learn about other trailblazers of the civil rights movement with these videos.
Hotep to the servant leader scholars of Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School. Shem Hotep, Dr. Mayat. And now it's time for the magic question. Sankofa, how y'all feeling? Fantastic, terrific, great, all day long. Boom, 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 boom. Whoa. And now it is time for the morning libations. We ask that you please stand strong, please stand firm in the firm Angalea. Permission has been granted in advance, and now we will begin the morning libations. Ashe. We would first like to pour libations to the gift of life, love, and learning, and we say Ashe. We pour libations to our ancestors who migrated out of Africa and gave to the world the gift of humanity, and we say Ashe. Pour libations to the mighty nations of Africa, and we say Ashe. We pour libations to the nations of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, to Niger, to Nigeria, to the Yoruba, the Igbo, the Hausa, to Ghana, the Twa, the Ashanti, the Akan, to Chad. We pour libations to the Sudan, South Sudan. We pour libations to Ethiopia, to Kenya, to Democratic Republic of Congo, to Tanzania, to Angola, to Zambia, to Zimbabwe, to Mozambique, to Botswana, Namibia. We pour libations to those nations named and unnamed. Ashe, Ashe. Sixth pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, born approximately 1500 BCE or 3,500 years ago. The pharaoh Jehudi Mesud III, warrior king of the 18th dynasty, also known as Tutmosis, was one of the greatest military leaders of ancient history. Under the reign of Pharaoh Hatshepsut as a young heir to the throne, he trained as a warrior to protect his nation. His ancestors were warrior leaders who protected the nation, and he was determined to continue in their footsteps. His most famous battle of 17 military campaigns was the Battle of Megiddo, in which the pharaoh Jehudi Mesud III said, "Capture Megiddo with 1,000 princes was the capture of 1,000 towns." To the pharaoh Jehudi Mesud III, we pour libations and we say, Ashe. We pour libations to our ancestors who survived the torturous, treacherous journey of the Middle Passage, Ashe. We pour libations to our ancestors who survived in the dungeons of West Africa, taken in wars and enslaved, Ashe. We pour libations to those ancestors who rerouted ships, burned ships, sank ships, Ashe. We pour libations to our ancestors who gave their lives as a testament to freedom, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. To Rachel Beauvoir Dominique, we pour libations and we say Ashe. Born 1965, she became an ancestor 2018. She was an Haitian anthropologist and Vodun Mambo priestess. She studied cultural anthropology while she was in college and became a critic of political repression in Haiti. She was an author and defender of Haitian history and culture. She collected oral histories on the origins of the Haitian Revolution. An award-winning writer, a cultural anthropologist. To Rachel Beauvoir Dominique, we pour libations and we say Ashe. To Mary Ellen Pleasant, we pour libations and we say Ashe. Believed to be born in 1814 into slavery with some disagreements around her birth and aspects of her life, she was rightly called mother of the civil rights movement in California. Upon acquiring her freedom, she went to California and became a businesswoman, entrepreneur, and real estate investor in San Francisco. Blending the racial color lines, she became an extremely wealthy multi-millionaire, employing escaped slaves, bringing lawsuits to desegregate streetcars in the 1860s, providing funds for the Underground Railroad, for which she had a reward put out on her life. She even funded John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. To our ancestor, Mary Ellen Pleasant, we pour libations and we say, Ashe. Nannie Helen Burroughs, born 1879, possibly 1880. She became an ancestor in 1961. She was an educator, feminist, and activist. Born to formerly enslaved parents in Virginia, when she was turned down a teaching position, she founded her own school to uplift Black women and girls called the National Training School for Women and Girls. Nannie Helen Burroughs was active in the National Association of Colored Women, Carter G. Woodson's Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, and several other organizations. She was an inspiration and advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his early years and other leaders. After her passing, her school was named the Nannie Helen Burroughs School. To our ancestor, we give libations and we say, Ashe. Let us pour libations to the ancestors and our personal families. Please call their names, Ashe, I pour libations to Mama Nettie Mae Williams and Papa Frank Washington. Ashe. Please call the names of the ancestors in your personal families. Ashe. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. We would like to give thanks and affirmation to the leadership of Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School. To our upper school coordinator, Sister Tamika, we give affirmation and thanks, and we say Ashe. To Brother Issa Clark, our COO and co-founder, we give thanks and affirmation, and we say Ashe. And to our CEO, our head of school and founder, our leader, Dr. Mama Aisha Imani, we give affirmation and thanks, and we say Ashe. We ask that this libation is accepted with all good intention. We ask that it is understood as a form of cultural and educational practice of African-centered schools, that it is understood as a time-tested and time-practiced cultural tradition of African people. Go forth with purpose, walk in the footsteps of your mighty ancestors, so that one day the unborn will walk in your footsteps. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. It is now time for announcements and recognitions. The principle of the month is Umoja, and Umoja means unity. The Ma'at virtue of the month is harmony. And Sister Alex would like to recognize the following students for their perseverance. These students are Xavier Foster, Zaki Smith, Ahmad Lewis, and Zakira Reynolds. These students have been terrific at communicating with their facilitators. According to Sister Alex, they have been asking questions and always seeking to do better. Keep up the great work, scholars. Ashe.
We are the servant leaders and intellectual warriors
of Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School.
We shall always remember the sacrifices of our ancestors.
Those who were taken from their land and those whose land was taken from them.
Because we stand on the shoulders of the mighty people,
we shall build mighty shoulders for others to stand.
We pledge to develop good habits of the mind, body, and spirit.
We pledge to continue the legacy of the freedom fighters before us.
We understand that we exist because others have made it possible for us.
Because others have made it possible for us,
we will make it possible for others.
every day and everywhere.
We shall learn so that we can teach, and we shall teach so that we can change the world.
We are
Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School,
working to restore excellence in scholarship,
culture, and community.
One heart,
One love,
one earth,
one people,
Harambe.
And now it is time for the moment of silence. The moment of silence is used to reflect on the day. The moment of silence begins now. Stay focused. Remember the sky is the limit. And shoot for the stars. Ashe.